This is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. Linder, publisher of E&P. Listening to me on your favorite podcast platform, please follow us right now. Watching me on our YouTube channel, hit that little button below that says subscribe. To the immediate right is a bell. If you smash that puppy, you'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. I want to take you now to one of the most beautiful cities in the world, because I've been there, Keene, New Hampshire. What's happening in Keene is interesting. There is a place called the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship. It started as a local market, helping local growers and local manufacturers just have a place to sell their wares. And then it became more of an entrepreneurial think tank to help local entrepreneurs grow. They started a yearly event a few years back, and now it's become a big deal. It's actually called Radically Rural. And thanks to the president and COO of the Keene Sentinel, some of you know Terry Williams, been there for a while, they're now doing tracks on how local rural journalism can work with local governments and local entities and entrepreneurship to help all benefit and grow. And they're having a live event this fall. God forbid you should be up in rural New England in the fall during leaf peeping season. So it's September 22nd and 23rd. It is called Radically Rural, and we're going to explore it for the next 30 minutes. And stick around. This is a fun interview. As we go up to Keene, New Hampshire, and talk with Terry Williams, the president and COO of the Keene Sentinel, and Juliana Dodson, the director of Radically Rural at the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship. Terry, Juliana, boy, it's so nice to talk to someone in New England in the summertime, isn't it, Terry? You can brag about your great weather right now, Juliana, how beautiful it is up there, but I promise you in 6 months, it'll be cold and wet. Am I right, guys? So enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I'm from down south, and I do love the New England winter still.
Oh, you
beautiful.
Do? I left Maine, let's see, in 1999 and moved to Tampa, Florida, and never looked back. I'm sorry. Before we get into Radically Rural, and I think this is a very exciting thing, let's first talk about Keene, New Hampshire. Could you tell us a little bit more about Keene, Terry? I mean, that's where your operation is set. Is it really rural there? How would you describe the area?
Yeah, it's a small city, about 24,000 people, surrounded at least in the Keene Sentinel's footprint by 30 pretty small towns. Mm-hmm. And southwest corner, New Hampshire. I think it's rural. We bang up against Massachusetts to the south, the Connecticut River to the west, and then Vermont. So yeah, we're tucked away nicely in this region. Lots of little communities and hamlets, and yeah, it's a great spot for this type of event.
So in other words, if I were to dream of that perfect Christmas card environment, we're talking, the Keene. This would be the place you would think of with the gorgeous fir trees and the beautiful swashing. And this is real New England. Am I right, Terry? This is where you guys are.
Yeah. I think so. Yep. And Keene itself is kind of an idyllic downtown, and yeah, it's a pretty cool place.
All right, before we chat with Julia, tell me a little bit about the Sentinel, your operation. How big is it? What's your circ? How large is the team, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So we've been around a long time. We were founded in 1799, and we've got a pretty robust staff here for a newspaper of our size. Our newsroom's got about 15 people. and we're independently owned. The Sentinel's been in a couple different families for all that time. Currently owned by a gentleman named Tom Ewing. He's owned the paper for more than a quarter century. And we are just a very intensely local community newspaper. We're really privileged to be owned independently so that we've got the resources to do a good job.
That's great. Let's swing things down to Juliana right now. Juliana, you work at the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship. Please don't think I was stalking you, but I had to find out who Hannah Grimes was first. And did you know that she was born in Keene in 1776 when this country was born? Are you familiar with who Hannah Grimes was?
Yes, I am. Our executive director, Marianne Christensen, actually lived in the home of Hannah Grimes up until just this summer.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how the center and the marketplace got its name, was when she moved there. She started researching the history of the first owners, and loved the way that she lived her life by, making and growing everything she could, and what she couldn't, she purchased from friends and neighbors, and loved that lifestyle. Hannah Grimes wasn't a well-known person in history. When I was studying for my interview to work here, I was reading a book called Remarkable Women of New Hampshire, assuming that Hannah Grimes would be in there so that I could answer all the right questions. And she wasn't in there.
No.
She's not well known, but she has become so through the reputation of the Hannah Grimes Center and the marketplace.
What do you think, Terry? I think Hannah Grimes deserves a Wikipedia page. Do you agree, sir? We have to.
Yes, I think that's true, and perhaps Juliana can write it.
Yeah, we got to get that. We're going to start a campaign, because if you really read the history of Hannah Grimes, this was a woman back in the 1700s that believed in local entrepreneurship, local. So she was a visionary. I mean, this is an amazing story. Beautiful home still there up in Keene. Now, let's discuss, obviously, the Hannah Grimes Center for Entrepreneurship started with the marketplace, right? But it's expanded since then. It was simply just a marketplace where you could buy local goods. Is that how this whole thing blossomed up in Keene?
Yeah, that's right. Marianne had moved from New York City, and that's our executive director for Hannah Grimes, the founder of Hannah Grimes. And she was making soap, and she was able to ship it all over the country and other places in the world, but she couldn't figure out how to sell it locally. And so she realized that this was before the huge buy local movement really took off. And she realized most small vendors like herself couldn't afford the kind of store frontage and overhead that you need in order to sell locally. So she started the marketplace where other vendors like herself, makers and growers, could host their products. They all gathered there, and it was in one central location, which was a huge benefit to the members of the Hannah Grimes marketplace. And as they were there, she also helped to provide services for figuring out how to run a business and all the things that those small makers and growers needed. And over time, she had the opportunity to purchase an incubator, a business incubator that had failed, and was able to expand those services for the members and others in the community.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but people have actually relocated to Keene in order to be entrepreneurial because of this wonderful center. Am I right? I mean, I was reading about it. It's fascinating how it's turned into a place where people can grow, and they find their best by interacting now with other entrepreneurs locally. And you've really built quite a little center there. So now we got to get into this whole thing where it ties in, Terry and the Keene Sentinel and you, because you're a recent hire there. You're called the Radically Rural Director, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was simply a one-year event that kind of blossomed out of the center. Am I correct? Can you give us a little history here?
Sure. So it started, this is the 15th year of an annual event that the Hannah Grimes Center was doing called the Connect event. And originally it started as a way to celebrate the graduates of its program, and kind of bring leaders and doers in the community together. And it continued to grow year after year. And then I'll let Terry jump in here. When did the Sentinel get involved, Terry? Is it 2016?
Yeah, 2016, we got involved with Hannah Grimes. I was on their board, and Marianne and I talked about how could the Sentinel and the center partner to get the Connect event into into a bigger area, more attendees, that type of thing. And the first year that we collaborated, we had about 400 people attend, which was wonderful. And we did it again the following year in 2017. And then we got to thinking that, this is a great event, brings a lot of people together. Is there an opportunity to do something beyond this, where perhaps we come up with a number of tracks or sessions or things of that nature, and we make it a multi-day event? And so Connect, which is we've always held Connect, it continues today, but it gave birth to these tracks of experts from other parts of the country, rural regions, who could come in and kind of share their ideas and network with folks on how to make small communities more sustainable, more lively, more livable, that type of thing. And we started out with 5 different tracks, and we now have 7. And there are essentially 3 different sessions held over 2 days, individual by track. And it's just a great opportunity for people to kind of share and learn from others on how to make their community stronger.
See, this is what's so interesting. The Hannah Grimes Center was started simply to help an entrepreneurial, an entrepreneur grow. And just because it happened to start in a rural town, this is where I find it fascinating. This event they started, which was simply more, correct me if I'm wrong, Juliana, like a graduation. Here's some local entrepreneurs, let's salute them. That it became now a think tank center for the rural community. And this is what's interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of data out there that shows there's a disparity in this country between where a lot of the resources go. I mean, this should be obvious, but if you're living in a major metropolitan area, suburban part of the metropolitan area, there is more resources available to you than someone who wants to live rural. And correct me if I'm wrong now, the event is attended by people all over the country that want to stay rural, but want to learn how they can take advantage of that rural environment, but still have a growth. Am I saying that correctly, Juliana? Square the circle for me, or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. You're dead on with that. And kind of what we've realized is that, when you're in an urban area, you don't have to work as hard for resources. Natural resources, I would argue, are more plentiful, in rural communities. Sure. But for funding, maybe, or even just social resources, you're bumping into people all the time throughout your day. Ideas are running up against each other. They're growing. They're mutating to other ideas, and it's just this natural kind of progression. And in rural communities, sometimes you have to kind of recreate that density in urban areas. And a lot of people don't necessarily, their objective isn't to grow greatly in population numbers, or it's not necessarily to move to a bigger city, but then how can you take advantage of community and augmenting what's already happening without kind of giving up your small town. And so that's kind of what Radically Rural does, is it brings people together and recreates that urban density and kind of that environment of ideas just blossoming. And I know that, for me, I've experienced that in my own personal life. I feel like, some things that have happened in my life are like a microcosm of what can happen with this big macrocosm of Radically Rural. And I actually was introduced to the Hannah Grimes Center because I was practicing in public accounting, and often referred my clients to Hannah Grimes because, maybe they needed help and they couldn't afford billable hours, so I was working with a program director for that and was able to see all the benefits of what that could bring. And that's actually how I found Hannah Grimes. And ever since I've started, I've just heard story after story of incredible things that are coming from Radically Rural. One example is we had a local woman that lives in the same small town that I do in Chesterfield, New Hampshire, which is right next to Keene. And she attended a session in 2020 on fiber sheds. And now she is helping to organize a fiber shed for our region, which is pretty incredible. So it's the whole idea of circular economy in the in the fiber industry, which is pretty exciting, both environmentally and for the local farmers and vendors around here.
Now, Terry sent me the press release about Connect, which is how this whole dialogue started and why we're doing this interview. But Connect is just one event now of a full-time gig you've got at the Hannah Grimes Center. You are now working year-round to create more resources in order to help rural communities mimic this growth. Is this, I mean, it's almost like you're the Petri dish. Am I getting this right, Julianne?
Yes, that's correct. We did start year-round programming,
right.
And it's a great opportunity. We can only fit so many sessions and so many speakers in one summit a year. So it's a great opportunity to keep that energy going and keep the relationships progressing and deepening, and just keep the ideas going all year round. And so the next thing we'll be doing is there's a Monadnock International Film Festival in October, and we're going to be kind of hosting a radically rural film screening that we'll be having some Q&A after.
All right. So first of all, the event Connect is the 22nd and 23rd of September. And if someone wants to attend from anywhere, it's a beautiful time of year. Terry, can you guarantee that it'll be leaf peeping season then? Because I know you can always guarantee the exact date where the trees are perfect. Will that be that weekend, Terry? Can you?
There will be trees that will be in foliage, and there will be trees without. But we'll try to direct people to the proper.
It was so funny when I lived in Maine. All my relatives used to say, "So when are the trees going to be at their peak?" And I said, "You tell me. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it depends on the weather." And if they want more information, quickly, because I want to go on in this dialogue. If you want to attend Connect, Juliana, where do they go online to learn more?
So the 2-day summit is radically rural, and the Connect event is kind of our evening networking event that we have. So it's a part of the radically rural event. And if they want to attend, they can go to radicallyrural.org. And I would recommend clicking on the 2021 schedule, looking through all the great activities and live music and sessions and everything we have. And there will be just a register button they can hit, and it takes them to where they need to go to register. And you can attend in person, and you can attend virtually. There's either option for you. And yeah, it's really easy.
So now I want to talk with Terry a little bit about why I wanted to seek you guys out and do this interview, because Terry and I go way back. We're both in the media industry or the news publishing industry. And one of the challenges you may or may not know, Julianne, I'm sure you may have been reading about it, is this news desert thing that everybody's starting to talk about. The fact that local newspapers are having trouble surviving because of digital disruption. Some of their revenue streams have dried up. Here comes COVID. And in a big city, Terry, I do not want to see one newspaper ever go out of business. But that's why I took over at E&P and throwing life into it. But Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, if a big daily starts to contract, there's so many other news sources covering a metropolitan area. But if a small rural town loses its newspaper, it almost loses its heritage, its archives, it loses its checks and balances. Do you agree, sir?
Oh, absolutely. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to have community journalism as part of the summit. Having a local news organization, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a website or whatever, right. some sort of local connection to keep people informed and keep people networked is critical. We've come through COVID, we've come through all of this political upheaval, and I can't imagine any community, particularly small rural communities, how they stay informed if they don't have on these important issues, if they don't have somebody local to turn to. So we want, as part of, like, as the focus of the entire summit, we want to make sure that these various sectors stay, sustainable, including local news. So the programming that we put on is aimed at helping publishers, editors, journalists sustain their local news organization. And so the programming is all focused on what do you need to do? What are the steps you need to do to keep things thriving? How can I be a better journalist so I'm more relevant, I'm more important to the local community, that type of thing. These types of tools and resources, we hope in the long term, will be of great help to small news organizations like ours, the Keene Sentinel. We send a bunch of people to this summit, obviously, because we learn a great deal from it too.
Is the New England newspaper association helping you get more and more members to show up as well? Are you seeing our industry start to attend this event?
Yeah, we get great help from NENPA and Linda Conway and her folks, and so that's great. This year, I've been able to reach out to the New York Press Association, the New York Publishers Association. They've publicized this event, and one of the things that I landed in and would be helpful from this interview is that the Knight Foundation has provided a sponsorship to get rural journalists to attend this, and
that's wonderful.
At no cost, and I've got 5 people lined up to attend in person, which was the goal, was to find 5 people. But we've got slots for 45 journalists to attend remotely online. And I still have a lot of those slots left to fill and would love to do so, and would particularly love to fill it with journalists of color or indigenous populations that are covering small places across the country as well. And I hope that folks will get in touch so I can get them signed up.
So how do they do that? If I am a rural journalist or a publisher, and I really would like to take advantage of this think tank that's going to also include key information on how we can survive and help support the community who in turn will eventually support us, right? I mean, a thriving local community is beneficial. It's symbiotic. How do they get in touch with you to get one of those 45 seats, Terry?
Easy. They send me an email, twilliams@keenesentinel.com. And I will quickly put together an online meeting and get them signed up. It's really simple.
Keene, if anyone wants to know how to spell Keene. This is great. Now, and when you do this virtually as well, I was going to ask that because some people may not be comfortable traveling. And I'm sure, Juliana, you're taking all safety precautions for the event as well?
Yes, that's correct. We are requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test timestamped within the past 24 hours. We will be wearing masks in our indoor spaces and, taking all preventative measures we can with ventilation and, spacing and all of that. So we're really doing our best. We have no desire to put our small town, our community members, or those who are coming to us in their small towns at risk. We do feel like because we have 7 different tracks, and one thing that makes our event really unique is we're not all at one location. We're kind of spread throughout downtown, so people are meandering, in and out of Main Street businesses and things on their way to and from sessions. And so because we're spread out, we do have the ability to mitigate the risks a lot better, as opposed to the whole thing taking place in one location for the duration of it. So we do have a lot of preventative measures in place. And our numbers in person will be lower this year because of what's going on. So, either option is a great option, and it's really just up to everyone's comfort levels what they would prefer to do.
Terry, you have 45 seats that Knight has graciously said they will help someone to participate, but if someone has the means to pay, will you be offering people just a chance to tune in and watch and gather?
Yeah.
How do they go ahead?
Yep. So it's easy. Again, it's through the registration process that Juliana described. If for some reason my slots are filled up, or we don't have any availability in that fashion, it's really simple to attend. I think it's $49 if you want to attend remotely. Pretty inexpensive. Yep. And if you want to come in person, that's $149. Juliana, am I getting that right? Yep.
And, so $149 in person, it's $69 online. That was the early bird pricing, was the $49.
Yeah. So it's not expensive. The sessions are I think, going to be very helpful. And I'm just speaking to about the journalism sessions. The sessions across the entire 7 tracks are remarkably deep, important, helpful, and people will leave with really good ideas. And that's the whole focus is for people to attend this, to be able to go back to their communities with some ideas they can implement. Certainly things that will more than pay for the investment in attending.
This is amazing, and it's so inexpensive. Now, Keene, where's the closest airport? I mean, I think I know it. Is it Manchester or is it Boston or what? Where would you do?
Well, you get three choices, and none of them great.
Yeah.
Manchester is about an hour and an hour and 25 minutes away. Logan's a couple hours. If you get good traffic, it can be much worse than that if you don't.
Course.
Or you can fly into Bradley down outside of Hartford.
Of course. And go north, right?
Yeah. So any one of those choices, but be prepared for a bit of a car ride to get here. And I think that's, it's not easy getting here. And not that I think that's a great marketing message, but it does speak to our ruralness. And
no, but it's beautiful. I've been to Keene. It is a beautiful spot. It's gorgeous.
It's really, and we've.
It's totally worth it. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sure there's some lovely inns nearby, right? Juliana, places people can find a great place.
Absolutely. We do have hotel room blocks at 2 hotels, the Courtyard, Marriott, and Fairfield Inn and Suites that are right off Main Street and within walking distance of all of our sessions. So if they can get here, then they don't have to drive around while they're here. They can just walk around everywhere they go. And there's also plenty of, smaller bed and breakfast. There's Airbnb.
That's what I was going to say.
All sorts of options.
If you're going to go to Keene, take it from some guy who lived in New England for 20 years. If you're going to go to Keene, you want to do the B&B thing, right? I mean, Marriott Courtyard is fine for those of you, but it's more fun to take the whole New England experience, right? And just enjoy it. And what a great time of year. I mean, when you're in New England, you love the fall. I mean, that is just, that's just everything. So final words on other programming. I mean, I wanted this audience will be mostly obviously news publishing. That's what we focus on. Thousands of people, download or view this weekly broadcast. But if I'm a local publisher that's also, Juliana, on my local, development board of my rural town, or, tight with the local mayor or chamber, just quickly touch on some of those world-class speakers you have, if you don't mind, Juliana.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, the nice thing about Radically Rural is all of our tracks and sessions are geared toward people who care about their rural communities. They could hop from track to track and do one from entrepreneurship, one from community journalism, one from healthcare, and they could get something from it. So some of the programs that I'm particularly excited about this year we have a healthcare track for the first time, and it's particularly geared toward lay people, which is really interesting. Not many people think, what can I do for healthcare in my community? Because they think they have to be a healthcare professional to do that, and they don't. And in fact, it's absolutely necessary to get everyone in the community on board, because it's a whole ecosystem that needs to work together, and we can't just leave it to the healthcare professionals. So I'm very excited about that. We have lots of incredible speakers coming to our land and community track and our Main Street track. It's almost too much to go over at one time. I would recommend, like I said, going to radicallyrural.org, click on the 2021 schedule, and that has all of our activities. And then toward the bottom, it has just a block that has all 7 tracks with their sessions, and you can drill down on any one of those. And I guarantee you, everyone will find things that interest them. If they don't, their money back. I know they will.
Terry sent me the press release, and I immediately kicked back and say, "This is amazing. I never heard of it." And that really, for all my years. But when I saw some of the speakers you've got, very entrepreneurial. There's so much information that's coming out of this thing, and small town America is America in a lot of ways too. And I just think what you guys are doing is great up there. So here we go again, radicallyrural.org. Just go there and you'll see all the tracks, everything going on. If you don't want to head up to New England in the fall, go ahead and watch it virtually and still have maybe pancakes with maple syrup, right? After each event. But if you also want to take advantage of the Knight Foundation, it's T. Williams at Keene, Keene Sentinel.org. No, .com, excuse me, radicallyrural.org, KeeneSentinel.com. I have that correct, Terry?
That's correct. Yep.
And you're going to host a barbecue for everybody? I'm kidding, Terry.
Well, yeah, then we'll have a mixer here at the Sentinel, and the Connect event, which is that the evening of the first night, the 22nd, is outdoors. It's outside the historic Wyman Tavern, and the food will be amazing, and with local drink as well. So it's a really great celebration of a rural place.
That's amazing.
And we haven't even mentioned what we're closing with, which is what we call the Livability Slam. And it's pretty cool because, at one point we had an opening keynote and a closing keynote, and that's great. And we still have an opening keynote. But we decided to start closing with the Livability Slam because we're going to be hearing from others all over the country what they're doing in their rural communities. And we're using that kind of as a model to say, hey, this is really working in this community. Others can learn from it. And it's just that last burst of fireworks to just go out with on a really high note of inspiration. And anyone who feels like, you know what, I'm doing something pretty cool in my community, I want to share that. On our website, the same website we mentioned before, there's a form they can fill out to submit a 5-minute video. It doesn't need to be professionally produced or anything like that. Just share what you're doing in your community because we can all learn from it.
There you go. And some of the most fun interviews I have on this platform now are centering on rural entrepreneurial publishers who just care about those communities, are going in there and having a blast being part of the community, like Terry. I mean, Terry, you are so dedicated to that area, and what you've done over the years there is just wonderful. Please say hi to my old friends up there, please, Terry.
Oh yeah, we will. We'll probably have you back up here for conferences once everything is much easier to travel, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, and knowing you'll have me come up in February in the middle of the winter and all that kind of. You're not going to let me.
Oh yeah, of course. That's the winter convention, Mike.
There you go. Terry, Juliana, thanks for your valuable time. Once again, I urge anyone that just look at the schedule and you might be enticed to want to attend. It's radicallyrural.org. Both of you stay healthy, stay well, and enjoy this wonderful, wonderful fall up in New England, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Appreciate it.
I hope to see you there.
Yeah, take care.